If you've been feeling like rents have been high forever, you're not wrong. But here's a twist you probably didn't see coming. According to new data just released by Realtor.com, rents have now dropped for 21 months in a row, almost 2 years. Yeah, seriously. And while that's good news nationwide, here in San Diego, things are finally starting to shift significantly as well. Stick around and I'll share with you exactly how our rental market is changing and how that could be in your favor. If housing were a high school class, California just flunked. Realtor.com released its National Housing Report Card, grading every state on affordability and home building. And let's just say, if this were sent home, California's parents would be scheduling a parent-teacher conference real quick. I'll share with you who's making the grade, who's falling behind, and what it all means for us here in San Diego. This and more covered in this week's San Diego Market Matters, and I'm Karl Kyler, your San Diego Realtor. If you're enjoying the updates in these weekly reports, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date on what's happening in the real estate market here in San Diego. And if you're thinking of selling or buying here in San Diego, I have my contact info in the description below. Let's connect to see how I can help you make your next move happen for you. Now, let's get into the good stuff. Quick market check-in because we had a lot of stuff happen this last week. This last week, we saw a lot of positive movement in the markets after President Trump and China settled on a tariff deal. We had 2 inflation reports drop this last week as well. First was the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, the measure of inflation on what we pay for goods and services. This came in slightly below expectations at 2.3%, while core CPI, which is CPI minus food and energy due to their volatility, came in as expected at 2.8%. Then we had the PPI, the Producer Price Index report shortly after. PPI came in below expectations at 2.4%, while core PPI came in at expectations, 3.1%. Bottom line, these 2 metrics are showing that inflation is under control and slowly making its way downward. As a reminder, these are not the metrics the Federal Reserve uses to track inflation. The Fed uses PCE, the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index, and that reports at the end of the month of May. As for mortgage rates, we got close to breaking 7% this last week, but we didn't, thankfully. Right now, we're sitting just a hair below 7% with hopes that this will slowly get chipped down starting next week. I regularly get asked by people how rates are doing at the moment, and what my lender tells me is that they're pretty much doing the same thing they've been doing for the last 2 months. Now that's enough of the market update. Let's jump into the fall rents data that recently reported by Realtor.com. If you've been renting in San Diego or thinking about buying to get out of renting, you might be wondering if anything's actually changing. Well, here's some news worth paying attention to. According to a recent article by Realtor.com, rents are finally cooling off. Nationwide, April 2025 marked the 22nd straight month year over year that rents have declined. And for the first time in a while, San Diego renters are finally catching a freaking break. Let's zoom out first. Across the country, the median rent for studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms all dropped around 1.7 to 1.9% from this time last year. That brings the national median asking rent to about $1,700, a $60 drop from the peak of August 2022. And for affordability, the typical US household now spends about 23.4% of their income on rent. That's actually below the 30% threshold we use to define someone as being cost burden. In other words, things are trending in the right direction, even if it doesn't always feel that way. Now let's talk about San Diego. We've consistently ranked as one of the least affordable rental markets in the entire country. And yeah, we're still on that list. In April, the typical San Diego renter spent over 30% of their income on rent. That officially makes us a cost burden market. But here's the upside. Our rent to income ratio has actually dropped compared to this time last year. That means affordability is improving even if it still feels high. So what's causing this shift? Supply. A lot of new multifamily units have come online recently, especially in the western metros like San Diego, Phoenix, and Denver. With more units available, renters finally have options and landlords can't push pricing up the way they used to. To put this into perspective, the national rental vacancy rate is now up to 7.1%. That's the highest it's been since 2018. More choices mean less pressure on prices, and that's exactly what we're starting to see play out here locally. And I've talked about this in the past San Diego Market Matters videos where I covered all the new large built-to-rent developments that are popping up all over San Diego. In 2025 alone, we have over 4,000 brand new rentals coming to market. Now, this isn't a total rental reset. Rents are still up significantly from pre-pandemic levels, about 21% higher nationally than they were in 2019. but compared to the insane rent hikes we saw in 2021 and early 2023, this market is a completely different place. And this kind of environment might stick around for a bit longer. Slowing rent growth actually helps ease shelter inflation, which could influence how the Fed reacts to broader economic trends, AKA the PCE. So here's the takeaway. San Diego renters are finally getting some breathing room. It's not total relief, but it's something worthwhile. And if supply continues to grow and demand continues to soften a bit more, we might see further improvements in affordability here. Now, let's jump into another report Realtor.com recently posted about how states rank on affordability. Realtor.com's latest report takes a data-driven approach to grading all 50 states and DC on two core things: how affordable housing is right now and how much effort each state is putting into building more homes. Think of it as a progress report for solving the housing crisis. The report blends affordability metrics like what percentage of homes are actually affordable to the median income households and home building stats like how many permits are being issued and whether those new homes are priced for regular people. Now, spoiler alert, no state got an A+. Only 3 states cracked into the A range at all: South Carolina, Iowa, and Texas. And guess where California landed? With a failing grade. That's right, a big fat old F. And when you look at the two maps, one of the affordability and one of home building, California is red in both of them. Let's zoom in on the two sides of this equation. First, affordability. Only 18 states met the basic standard of housing affordability, which means the median income family could buy the median priced home without spending more than 30% of their income. In California, the average household would have to spend closer to 45%. And that's with a 10% down payment and a 6.75% mortgage rate. That means even if you're making good money here, the math still doesn't work out. It's not just a San Diego problem, it's statewide. But it feels especially sharp here where prices are high and incomes haven't kept up. Now let's talk about home building. Realtor.com looked at how many homes are being built in each state relative to their population. And while California is building a decent number of homes in raw volume, we're still not pulling our weight when you adjust for how many people live here. Our permit to population ratio is just 0.58 compared to Texas with a 1.67 or even Idaho topping out at 2.03. Even worse, the homes we are building aren't exactly helping affordability. New construction in California tends to skew towards the luxury, so even when we add homes, we're not really easing the squeeze for most buyers. Put those two factors together, high prices and weak building, and it's no surprise California got an F. We're just not doing enough to actually close this gap, which Realtor.com now estimates that gap to be 4 million homes nationwide. So how does this all relate to us here in San Diego? Well, our local reality is a perfect reflection of California's report card. We're one of the least affordable cities in the entire country. Our zoning laws are restrictive to say the least, and new construction has a tough time getting through. Even though we've seen slight improvements in rental affordability, as we've just covered a few minutes ago, homeownership remains insanely out of reach for most families and most individuals. If you consider a 10% down payment plus closing costs on a median price detached home with a 6.75% mortgage interest rate, that payment is still ridiculously higher than rent, which in turn is what makes San Diego not a very good market for investors to buy and hold for cash flow. When you look at where the A and B states are, places like Iowa, Texas, and the Carolinas, they've got lower home prices, more permissive zoning, and friendlier environment for builders. They're pulling ahead while states like California are just falling far, far behind. This is why I always say it's important to look beyond the local bubble. If you're wondering why affordability isn't improving here while it is elsewhere, this report gives you the answer. We're not building enough. And when we do, the ones we build are too expensive. Now, we are seeing a shift in the market, both on the rental side as we just discussed, as well as on the sales side. But the strong fact remains, we aren't building enough homes. And when supply is restrained, just like we saw in the car market during COVID, price only continues to climb. So what do you think? How can we encourage or promote builders to build more affordable options here in San Diego, as well as throughout the entire state? If you don't think we can, then what are your plans to buy a home here in San Diego or California if you haven't already? And that's a wrap for this week's San Diego Market Matters. I hope this information was valuable for you. If you enjoy what I bring in these videos every week and you haven't subscribed yet, consider doing so now. But if you're still not sure, That's okay. Hopefully I'll catch your interest in another one of my videos. As always, I'm Karl Kyler, your San Diego Realtor. I'll see you in the next video.